Servus, Männer, it's Red Pill Germany again. Tomorrow it is November the 5th, the day of the presidential election in the United States of America, a day that many people have been waiting for a long time. And today I want to give you a short take from my perspective. I will give you my revised or my updated opinion on Donald Trump and the significance of the election in the US. And also in the beginning, I want to show you briefly, not going into too much detail though, because it is not that new, but I want to show you how the German mainstream media is portraying Donald Trump and his opponent Kamala Harris from the Democrat Party. The outcome of the election is, of course, important for Europe and especially Germany, because we are somewhat, well, I should be straight, we are a satellite state of the greater American empire, and whatever happens there directly affects us, of course. Now let's look at what the average German, or let's say the older Germans who watch a lot of TV, the Germans who are not really getting their information from alternative news sources, what is being presented to them from the German mainstream media? Well, you all know these covers, maybe from the Obama era, where Obama was shown as some kind of messiah. And they're trying to do the same thing with Kamala Harris now, showing her as the Statue of Liberty, and Erlöser is normally, it means someone who is your savior or who delivers you from evil. That is a word we normally just hear when we talk about Jesus. So once again, they try to do the same thing as with Obama, portraying him as some messiah figure, her in this case now. And she is shown in a very positive light, of course, very capable and a brave woman, a trailblazer, etc. And then you see just these cover pages from news magazines, Der Spiegel or Stern, and it's always the same old tropes like Trump is setting the world on fire, he wants war, he's a dictator or he will become a dictator, he's showing some sort of Roman salute, and yeah, crazy. The only president of the United States in a very long time that hasn't started a new war, and it wasn't a coincidence. He obviously explicitly talks about how war is evil and he doesn't want new wars. He says that explicitly. And this is why the whole Liz Cheney thing is so nefarious, I think, because it is a very common thing to say here in Germany. When people talk about the horrors of war, they would say something like, along those lines, that wars would be over very fast if the leaders and politicians and these billionaires that are behind all these wars, if they were sent with a gun in hand to the front lines and they had to fight themselves, putting their own life in danger. And nothing else did Trump say here. He says that Miss Cheney, if she was on the front lines under fire, well, how would she like that? But our sons or American men basically have to die for the goals of some three-letter agencies. That is absolutely evil. And this is what he said. People say this kind of stuff all the time, and now the media is insinuating that Trump actually wishes her harm or is speculating about how to get rid of her or something along those lines. It is just saying that the politicians who are so pro-war, they normally don't face the danger. It is, young European men who pay the price. European of origin in the case of the USA, of course. All right, so this is for me personally, especially from a European perspective, believe it or not, the most important thing is that Trump is a president of peace and not a president of war, like Bush, Obama, Clinton, and now Harris also. Because one of the biggest consequences for us here in Europe is when America goes to war, that there is always an influx of, world travelers afterwards. They came from Iran, they came from Syria, they came from Afghanistan, and coincidence, all these countries were destabilized or invaded by the US. But now the American voters also get to see this kind of consequence, as more and more world travelers are streaming through the US southern border with Mexico, and many of them are not Mexicans, let's just put it that way. I've read that it is about 10 million that came in recently or in the last years. I mean, that is the number I read. I don't know the context anymore, but yeah, 10 million for a country of the size of the US. That is rather moderate when you compare it to Germany. But even the US is starting to see now the disastrous consequences that this uncontrolled and unregulated migration has on their country. You pretty much see the same thing that we see in Germany. Crime goes up, of course. Funds that were normally used for our own citizens are used now on these migrants. Housing is becoming very scarce. The thing you saw with FEMA, for example, after this disastrous storm, well, we see stuff like that all the time in Germany. The funds that should be used for us in healthcare system and stuff like that is not there anymore, or retirement system, because we have to pay for all these world travelers. You see the same thing in your country now. A little bit delayed, but you get to see it. And the thing is, you had a president that closed the border, that wanted to build the wall, that even took it out of the defense budget when they didn't clear the budget in a normal way. And then the American voters decided, well, that this is not so important anymore. And yes, maybe there was some foul play in 2020, but well, had the turnout been as great as 2016, maybe they couldn't have done anything about it. And also what Trump will need to do is not only close the border this time. Last time he should have, and he wanted to close the border. Now this is not enough anymore. Same as with Europe. It is not enough to just close the border. You have to send those people back that are already in, because it is too many. If we close the border now and we do nothing else, it is not enough. Our countries are doomed because too many already made it in. So remigration becomes the key issue next to closing the borders. It is at this point in time equally important, and that is why Mr. Trump will have to face this challenge, and he has to find an American solution for remigration. He should, quite frankly, he should use the term, he should spread and popularize the term, normalize the term in a way that identitarians from Europe just cannot do, because they just don't have the platform and the reach like a President Donald Trump would have. And that would show European leaders, European parties, and European nations that it is possible, it is the way to go, and this is not a dirty word. It is necessary to do so in order to make sure that in the future our children and grandchildren have a chance to survive in this world, in order to ensure the existence of our people. And I know that the United States, they don't think like that there. They don't see that as the core issue. They are more, how should I say, civic nationalists maybe, or they like their constitution and their rights, and that is all fine. But I think there is a consensus now in the Trump camp, in the Republican Party on the right, that with these new arrived world travelers, this is not possible. When it comes to Mr. Trump's economic policy, my feelings toward that are pretty much like last time. I can understand it. Higher tariffs, that would of course hit Europe and especially Germany very hard. But that would not be our biggest problem. Our biggest problem is our own rather stupid economic policies, not potential tariffs with the US. That would of course be another problem, but then maybe more pressure is put on Germans to rethink their environmental laws and their insane levels of bureaucracy, and also their welfare programs and their migration policies. Also, if Trump really manages to prevent a conflict, a greater conflict and escalation in the Middle East, and if he can end the conflict in Ukraine, that would actually help Germany financially so much more than the tariffs would hurt us. So I'm not too scared of that at the moment, at least. And I can understand that the US wants to bring manufacturing back. I always said that. I think that a prosperous America that does well economically, not just on Wall Street, but also in their production, in their manufacturing sector, this is something that Germans will profit from. And even if we don't, I wish Americans well. I have many friends in the United States. I lived there, and I would be happy to see them do better than right now. I know that many Anglos and also many Southern Europeans, many Western Europeans also, they don't like Germany, and I get some very borderline hateful comments sometimes, and I'm kind of saddened by that. If you are a nationalist, you should not wish other countries bad luck or harm, even though your mainstream media made you believe that they're somehow the reason for your troubles or something like that. It would be very easy for me to frame the United States or the Americans as the origin or the reason for some of our problems here in Germany, but I don't do that. I never did that. You have to distinguish, to differentiate between the leadership, the regime of a country and the people, and also between the people who are operating behind the scenes and the regime even. And that brings me to a very important point when it comes to Kamala Harris, same as Biden, Obama, basically most of the Democrat leaders. You don't really know who really runs the country. And with Biden, this became very clear because he wasn't really there most of the time. So they don't have the presence, nor the education, nor the intelligence to actually run the country. Of course, every president has some group or some camp, some advisors behind him. But in the case of Biden, it was very clear that he was not in charge whatsoever. And I think it is something that some people call the deep state, some people just call the administration. I think in the case of the US, it is a lot of three-letter agencies and very rich, well-connected people. Maybe some ethnic tribes are also involved here. Who knows? That is the thing. You can't read about that on the news, in the media, because they don't want their names there. But it is pretty clear that some of these agencies and some of these actors behind the scenes, they are the actual power in the US and also in Europe for that matter. So in the way, we are ruled by the same people, and it is not the American people or the Americans or even the American government for that matter that is the problem. And when I look at Trump, I think the establishment wants to fight him. They wanted to make sure with physical means this time that he will not survive until election day. But he survived, so far at least. Maybe it was coincidence, maybe it was sheer luck, maybe it was divine intervention, I don't know. But it is, that thing in Pennsylvania, that is insane. I don't think it is faked, I think it is very real. I think they took a shot at him, so to speak, and they failed, and it was really unlikely. So to sum up, I think, of course, that every citizen of the United States should vote for Donald Trump. He's clearly the better candidate, not just for the US, also for the world, and especially for Germany and Europe. War and migration are the biggest problems that our countries at least have right now. There are so many aspects one could also mention, like Elon Musk and his space exploration goal, which is very important. Yeah, you have to give a nation a goal that is larger than themselves. Just being well and being able to consume, to survive, that is not enough. You need some kind of a mission. At least European people need that. And that is why it is very important that, just like the moon landing back then or something like that, that can be used to give Americans a sense of purpose. It might not be the most relevant thing to many people, but it is important that something like that is there. So this is just one of the many aspects one could be talking about, but for the sense of brevity, I want to keep it at that. Let me know what you think about that in the comments down below. Servus, Kameraden.